Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Public Works Finance and Safety Committee meeting of Monday, April 19, 2021. Roll call, please, Kristen.
Albertson.
Here.
Bueller. Here. Hoyer.
Here.
Pauline.
Here.
Lallam. Absent. Manti.
Here.
Rademski.
Here.
Roby.
Here.
Billhauer.
Here.
Y.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Have a motion by Helene and a second by Rademski. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is public comments. This is the time reserved for anyone who would like to make a public comment to step forward and do so. We do have a sign-up sheet for in-person comments and a policy for all. If anyone wishes to speak, please come forward or say permission to speak if you're online. See no one, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Have a motion by Billhauer and a second by Albertson. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 6 is the regular agenda. Item A is approval of the professional services agreement for services associated with the wastewater treatment facility evaluation, project number 2117, with HDR Inc. of Sioux Falls in the amount of $113,958, utilizing cash reserves as funding and authorizing the mayor to sign all necessary documents. So moved. Have a motion by Y. Second. And a second by Rademski. And I will ask the Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye, to tell us about this, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This item pertains to, obviously, the wastewater treatment facility. This is specific to the treatment plant itself. The council may recall we've done a couple other recent activities and studies related to wastewater rates, and then we're also doing a sanitary sewer model where we're modeling the capacities of our sewer collection system. This particular item, though, pertains specifically to the plant and the treatment processes. And a little bit of a backstory here is that this facility evaluation was penciled in Mike Berger's 2022 CIP. And, of course, Mike Berger, being the wastewater superintendent, had planned to perform this task through a consultant under next year's fiscal budget. With recent discussions lately, though, and with those other recent studies that we've done, we felt it was important to pull this up into the 2021 fiscal year. We've talked with the finance officer, Kristen Bobzine, and we've come to a level of comfort in knowing that we can afford this out of the wastewater fund in the 21 fiscal year. And we'd be asking for council to go ahead and approve us moving forward with this, again, unbudgeted item in 21, but having sufficient funds for it to be carried out in 21. The purpose for this evaluation really is to look at the wastewater treatment facility plant and its processes and capacities. From the evaluation, recommendations would be provided by the consultant for improvements necessary to meet the service area needs for wastewater treatment facility for the next 20 years. Given some confidential discussions and potential development, there's also room to plug in any confidential assessment we may want the consultant to perform based on potential businesses that are looking at coming to Watertown and how that may impact our wastewater treatment processes as well. And just wanted to make all those points known to the council before their decision this evening. Mike Berger's online with us, and here I can stand by for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Von Eye. Council, any questions about this? Councilman Hoyer.
Well, it's not so much a question, I suppose, Heath, but I would say I'm in favor for this, just to get some capacity stuff going, knowing that we're going to be expanding out into some areas that'll probably be pumping some more water into the sanitary sewer. Just knowing that our capacities get a little tight sometimes, it'd be good to know what that's truly going to look like, especially if we potentially add any businesses that might put increased wastewater flow into the system. So good to know all the facts before we do anything else.
Agreed. Anyone else? All right, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item B is approval of a bid award for the 3rd Avenue Mill and Overlay and Sidewalk Improvement, project number 1706W, to Dunick, Inc. in the amount of $180,900, authorizing the mayor to sign all applicable documents. Have a motion by Rademski and a second by Bueller. And again, I'll ask Public Works Director Heath Von Eye to tell us about it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. This is one of our conventional bid awards we've been planning on for this year. There are a couple of anomalies on this one that I'll point out. This is related to the mill and overlay from Highway 20 east to Compesca Boulevard. If you recall, we were anticipating in 2021 to reconstruct or mill and overlay that portion of the roadway, but also reconstruct the bridge and also reconstruct the roadway east of Compesca Boulevard. The bridge and the street work east of Compesca Boulevard has been put on hold primarily due to the bidding timeline for the bridge work in relation to the DOT's big program, the Bridge Improvement Grant Program that we have that bridge, that structure replacement financed under or funded under. With that being said, shifting that construction work into next year, we did still, however, want to take advantage of getting a portion of the work done this year on 3rd Avenue. And that is why we're proposing to go ahead and pursue the mill and overlay from Highway 20 east to Compesca Boulevard. The bids did come in a little bit higher than we anticipated. We did, however, have a slight error in our engineer's estimate. If you take into account our error where we had a decimal place off, the bid is about 30 grand over what we anticipated, rather than the 60 that it's otherwise shown in the summary. We had estimated roughly 125,000. Of course, the bid coming in at roughly 180,000. With that being said, we are confident and comfortable with the numbers based on the fact that we have a pretty exorbitant amount of budget in fiscal year 21 for 3rd Avenue as a whole. And because we're not doing those other aforementioned pieces of the project, we can absorb this additional cost into this year's budget. What we would anticipate doing then is as we move ahead and fine tune the numbers for next year's work, we'll account for this additional 60 grand, whether needed or not, when we look at 2022's final numbers with the bridge and street work east of Compesca Boulevard. So we feel that we can get those numbers to balance out. Again, we've communicated that with the finance officer, and she's comfortable with the engineering staff's plan on getting this funded and completed this year. This does include the mill and overlay and the sidewalk work for this stretch. And we stand by for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councilman Vilhar?
The only question I would have, and it's probably kind of late in the game to be asking it, but were there any efficiencies to be had by waiting and doing this as part of the bridge and the other segment of road?
Yeah, great question, Councilman Vilhauer. We had originally anticipated doing it all together for that reason. I will say that this being mill and overlay, specific to mill and overlay, the rest of the street work east of Compesca will be full reconstruct, so there'll be full removal. So it is a little bit different work. You know, we maybe could have gained some economy of scale there, but maybe not a tremendous amount because of the different scopes of work that each segment have.
Anyone else? Councilman Hoyer?
With the shrub and tree removal that's going on this heath, I don't know exactly where they're at, if they're just residential or what. Will there be replacement or anything of that sort?
Yeah, let me defer to Marcy Luno's in the audience here. She would have some specifics for me as the project manager on this.
Thanks. Marcy from engineering. Right now, we are not planning to put any trees back at the moment. We actually would probably do that with our 3rd Avenue full reconstruct project, only because there's potential that there could be a few of those along the way, and it gives Park and Rec a little bit more time to think about what our replacements are going to be. We've already gone out to bid for those, and we didn't include them in this phase of the project.
Perfect. Sounds thought out. Thanks, Marcy.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 7 is old business. Do we have any old business? Any new business? We do have a number of items that are on the agenda for new business, starting with the recognition of Tracy Eichen's IMSA certifications as the streets sign and signal technician. And I guess I will ask the Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye, to go ahead and take care of this, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. If I could invite Rob, Bana, and Tracy up to the podium here. Rob, of course, being the city's street superintendent. Tracy Eichen's being a long-time street operator for the city. Probably roughly a year ago, he transitioned into the sign signal technician, Mr. Eichen's did. And with that, that was a point in time when the city was going through the compensation classification study. Rob and I were together looking at job descriptions and how our street functions are carried out and how those positions are classified. And one of the things that was apparent to Rob and I was that the sign and signal position maybe didn't have quite enough stature for a community of our size and the number of signs and signals that we deal with. And one of the ways to help substantiate not only the position and the integrity is maybe not the right word, but strengthen the detail level that we put into our signage and signal maintenance operations. There are a lot of implications for that throughout the country from city to city. As you know, when you're dealing with the city public rights of way, there are a lot of liabilities at stake, and if things aren't done right as far as the proper sign being hung at the proper location and the proper height and the proper offset from the edge of the roadway, simple things like that can often cause a huge liability for municipalities, counties, and states, along with the signal timing and the equipment used in our traffic signals. Any of those things that are out of step or out of sync with national standards can oftentimes get pointed to as a point of liability when a traffic accident occurs. And so one of the ways to help, again, substantiate that position and ensure that our staff are following the most current national standards is through the IMSA, the International Municipal Signal Association. And I know some of you might think there's an association for that, and yes, absolutely, we're here to tell you tonight that there is. So that was something that, again, prior community I'd worked with, our sign and signal techs were IMSA certified, and had that discussion with Rob, and he agreed that that would be a great idea to implement something like that with this position for the city of Watertown. So tonight, I just wanted to kind of paraphrase that plan, that little bit of shift that we did in the program there under Rob's helm at the Street Division of Public Works, and then also give some recognition for Tracy for getting right on the ball with achieving some of these certifications. He has now received 3 of the 5 that we've requested for this position. First one being, and I'll share it on my team screen here. For those, I believe we have, yes, we do have some council members online this evening. And so the first one is Work Zone Temporary Traffic Control Technician certification. This is related to what we call temporary traffic control. It's the stuff that you see up for construction zones, mostly the orange signs and things of that nature that are warning the traffic of detour routes and work ahead and things of that nature. The other one being Traffic Signal Technician Level 1. Now the signal and sign technician certifications have different levels to them. And Tracy's went ahead and went to the proper trainings and passed the coursework to receive the Traffic Signal Technician Level 1 certification. And then the third one is the Traffic Signal Field Tech Level 2, again linked. A progression is essentially a progression of trainings that get a little deeper in depth, a little more complex in the technicalities of them, and allow us to claim this significance for this position and holding those certificates. Again, helping to minimize the liability on the city and things of that nature. So with that, I'll pass over to Rob briefly if he has any comments, or Tracy as well, and congratulate Tracy for accomplishing these in a quick hurry.
Thank you.
You know, I'm glad that we went forward with this, this in the job description as well. I think it helps cover things that we need with sign and signal, so that people understand that we're not just winging it. We're getting training on this stuff. Tracy's done well with it. There's 2 other certificates he has to obtain yet. And we look forward to getting that done in the future. He's still got 2 years to get those, so he's got some time. But he did get this the first 3 done in a year, so that was really good. But I think the next one that we found, if he does it this year, is the closest one's in Florida. So we're gonna have to figure that one out.
Go
Tracy
in the
doesn't
winter
fly.
time, I think that would.
Yeah. No, how about not? But yeah, he's been with us in that department or in that capacity for a year, full time in there. Prior to that, he was helping our last sign and signal lead as his daily helper throughout the year. So he's got some good time under his belt with that too. Being, he's under Rick for training on the job. So yeah, so congrats on that, and thank you for getting those.
No problem.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate your taking the time and effort to do that extra work, and we appreciate it. So
Piece
give
of
him a
cake.
hand.
Thank you.
Congrats, Tracy. Thanks, Rob. All right, item B is introduction of new community development and engineering staff. So Heath, want to help us with that too?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to take some time this evening. We'll make it as brief as we can here, but we've had a significant amount of new staff, new faces in the community development and engineering divisions of Public Works. And I wanted to just welcome those staff that work here in City Hall to a Public Works Committee meeting, and then also take the opportunity to help put a face to a name for some of the staff that are a little newer than others, and just simply go through some of those positions here briefly with the Public Works Committee tonight. I will again share my screen and pull up an organizational chart for some context of the discussion. So here in Public Works, since we've reorganized, it's been a year and a half ago already, where we have essentially the 7 divisions of Public Works, being engineering, airport, community development, solid waste, streets, Upper Big Sioux River watershed, and wastewater divisions of Public Works. Of course, myself wearing the city engineer hat, I am the manager of the engineering division. Do that in tandem with Justin Peterson, who's our assistant city engineer. Todd Syrie, of course, the airport manager, and Stacy Bungard being our new community development manager. Mike Berger, of course, has been around a long time with the city of Watertown. We're blessed to have him in our presence. He's heads up both divisions of the solid waste and wastewater for Public Works. Roger Foote is also no stranger to Watertown. He's been a key stakeholder in the Upper Big Sioux watershed project for quite some time. And then, of course, Rob Bainan as well, another longtime figure in the community, the street superintendent for the city. I want to start off here with the engineering division of Public Works, just to let the council see how that is laid out, where you have the city engineer overseeing an office specialist and the assistant city engineer. And then to Justin reports the rest of the staff in engineering directly. We have an engineer 2, an engineer 1, a licensed surveyor, and a senior tech. And then a seasonal intern in the summer months, if we're lucky enough to fill that position, which we are this year. So we have an intern coming on here towards the middle of May. I'll come back to this slide. And then community development. If you recall, we've kind of revamped the old building services division and made it community development. And we've taken the urban planner, who used to be up here under the city engineer, and we plugged that position in under the community development manager, along with our new revised building official and our code enforcement officer. And underneath the building official, we placed the building inspector and the new permit technician as well. And again, I'll come back to these in more detail. The airport, we have Todd Syrie, his foreman, and then the 4 maintenance workers out there at the airport to perform all those duties. Obviously a critical component of the city's operations. And the street division, Rob with his foreman, Tim LaFramboise, and then he's got 12 full-time operators and then 4 seasonal positions. 3 of them are kind of the regulars that come back from year to year. Solid Waste Division is led by Mike Berger. He's got essentially 2 divisions under Solid Waste. He's got the collections, which is all the solid waste garbage truck haulers, drivers, and then the landfill operations, where all the landfill, the compaction and monitoring and testing and everything that goes on at the landfill for our permit that we have for the landfill operations. And then Mike's wastewater division that he helps head up out there with his assistance from Craig Mitchell. And then this is kind of divided into 2, maybe 3 areas you can look at it as, but the wastewater collection, that's led by Larry Howard. That's all the sanitary sewer collection system throughout the town that brings the wastewater to the treatment plant. And then you have the plant operators led by Bruce McGee and all the plant operation technicians that are out there underneath him. With that is also the pre-treatment program, where we have industrial pre-treatment standards that we have to meet for a wastewater permit. And those are all the staff that help head up those functions. So going back to, we'll start off with engineering and just do a quick introduction. Did I see Justin come in the room? Yes. Maybe just stand where you're at, and everybody probably knows Justin by now. He's been here right at a year in May, I believe. Is that correct, Justin? But Justin comes with us with a master's degree in engineering. He's also got his professional project management certification, PMP, through that certification process. So his skill set in helping with our project management duties that we carry on our CIP projects has been very instrumental and very helpful to the department. So we appreciate having him aboard and his insightfulness and everything that he brings to that position. So Justin, of course, has been there for a little while now, but just wanted to introduce him. We also have with us tonight, Carla Albus is here. She's our new office specialist too. And as you recall, our previous one retired at the end of last year. And so Carla's been able to step in and really fill a big gap there when Lori retired. She had a lot of institutional knowledge that she took with her. And Carla's just really made the position hers as far as diving into anything that we present to her or inquiring about what else she might be able to do to help with. Has been a very strong asset to the engineering division in that respect. And I'd expand on her description a little bit, where her position used to be specific to the engineering division. I've modified that to it's more of a public works admin assistant or a public works office specialist. And so she will help Mike Berger, Rob Bainan, Roger Foote, Todd Syrie, the other public works managers with tasks as needed as well. So it's great to have her in that capacity too. Our engineer 2, Cole DeBerg, I don't believe is here this evening. He is with us part-time for right now. If you recall, that was a new position we added to the engineering staff. And we went out to seek an engineer 2, which was an EIT, an engineer in training. Cole does not have that certification yet, so he's technically an engineer 1 until he receives that training. He's finishing up his coursework in a construction management degree at SDSU, and he'll be joining us full-time here in May once he's done with that program. He's otherwise been working for us part-time on Wednesdays and all-day Friday. Marcy Lunar is our engineer 1. She's, again, been here a little better than a year now, a year and a half, I suppose, maybe 2, as fast as time flies. Marcy's been very instrumental in stepping into the engineer 1 role, learning a lot of new civil engineering traits and functions. She comes to us with a background in industrial manufacturing engineering, and so while it's been a learning curve for her, she has truly embraced it to the extent that it's apparent to everyone, so much that she recently received the Rookie of the Year award, I believe is the correct award title that she got for her dedication and contribution to the engineering division. So we appreciate having her on board in that capacity. Our licensed surveyor, John Bunkowski, is with us here tonight. John comes to us with a long history of surveying experience as a licensed surveyor. these are very hard positions to fill. Licensed surveyors do not come a dime a dozen these days, and they're very hard to find and recruit into positions such as this. So we were, again, blessed to find John's interest in coming work with the City of Watertown. He does help with the survey of construction projects that we're putting together the plans for. He'll help review legal descriptions and working with the city planner, Brandy, and with Stacy in community development, making sure that the legal descriptions that we get from applicants are accurate. And of course, he kind of acts and functions as an engineering technician as well when it comes to project management duties out on construction projects. So thank you, John. Senior Engineer Tech Devin Kwasniewski is with us here tonight as well. Devin comes from us also from the manufacturing world and did a lot of drafting and a lot of that technical work in the manufacturing side of things, where he's checking, make sure a lot of I's are dotted and T's are crossed in a design world of manufacturing that he worked in, and was a great asset to bring on board with his drafting skills. So again, there's a little bit of a learning curve here that Devin's really dove deep into, learning the civil drafting side of things and less of the mechanical that he was very much more accustomed to. But he's very proficient with AutoCAD and is picking up the civil side very, very well. I know he's very dedicated and gets frustrated maybe some days for where he wishes he was in his progress, but I reassure him often that that's going to take a little bit of time, and we just appreciate his ambition to get there all the sooner. So Devin's been a great asset to have on board too. And again, our intern, I mentioned, we do have an intern coming on, and she'll be joining us towards the middle of May. Community development. We have some community development staff here with us this evening, and again, this would have been otherwise known or formerly known as the Building Services Division. And through attrition, we decided to revamp this division of Public Works just a little bit, not majorly, but enough to help it make a little more sense from the workflow and the functionality and the services we provide to the development community of the city. We've selected Stacy Bungard as our Community Development Manager. She's been with us since last August, I believe, and has really done a lot to learn the ins and outs of the city's processes. She's been picking up a lot of the building permitting tasks up front, along with help from several of her staff. And now that we have some of these other positions filled, we'll start to catch her breath a little bit, hopefully, and start to focus at some more management level tasks that we would like to accomplish. Stacy has a breadth of experience in the planning realm. She's got a master's degree in public administration and has been in the planning and zoning world for a dozen years or better now, I believe. So she comes with us with a wealth of experience that's been very, very resourceful for us. Our urban planner, we joked the other day in our staff meeting, she's one of our long-timers here as the urban planner, I think at 4 years now, Brandy, is that correct? Soon to be 5. So Brandy, of course, everybody knows Brandy. She's been here long enough, but does a great job for us as the urban planner and is an invaluable asset to the team in managing the planning and zoning functions and the planning commission and the BOA projects that we take to those boards. One of our newest members, is our building official, Jason Spurgeon, hiding behind the curtain back here. Jason comes to us from another municipality over in Minnesota, and he's got, again, a wealth of knowledge with 10 to 12 years with that municipality, and then another 10 to 12 years of private sector building experience. So he's got a breadth of knowledge in the building codes, hands-on knowledge of how things are built, and just a tremendous asset to fill that gap that we really needed filled. This one took us a while to fill. We tried a few different variations of what this position should be, and we ended up landing here eventually at the building official, and have been, again, just very blessed to have Jason as a candidate that had interest to come join us here, and great to continue to work with him and the knowledge that he brings to that position. We had the code enforcement officer, Brent Moorman. He's another long-timer. He's 5 years, correct, Brent?
Yep.
In that position. He's been with the city in other positions prior to that, but in his current position as code enforcement officer for roughly 5 years. Now, Brent's work deals more with specific private property nuisance and maintenance type codes This oftentimes get confused with the building codes that Rick and Jason otherwise administer. But Brent's main focus is those property maintenance and nuisance type codes that he helps address issues with. Underneath Jason, when we restructured this a little bit, we put Rick Troop, the building inspector. Rick's been with us close to a couple years now, yeah. And he's, again, filled a great gap there with the building inspector role. And I tell you, he's a great asset to have. The builders love working with him. They all have him on a speed dial. They're not afraid to call him when they got a question or they need to notify him of something or an inspection. And he's got a great personality where he's a good bridge and point of connectivity from the office staff that are administering the regulations and helping explain them from time to time, but then the field operations where things are actually getting built. And he's got a good balance on how to weigh those things out, which I think is critical in a position like that. And last but certainly not least, tonight we have the permit technician, Heidi Letsky. Did I say that right, Heidi? Lachky. Heidi comes with us from a different private sector building agency here in town, and again brings some of that background information and knowledge on building trades and what they're all about, and now learning the administration of our end of it, where we're the permit issuers and the overseers of those building projects. So she's quickly grasping that permit process, and I don't doubt one bit will embrace the new process that we'll be talking about here briefly, which is a great segue for us. So with all that, just want to thank all the staff for coming tonight, and if anybody has any questions, we'd love to help answer them.
Thank you, that was great. Anybody have any questions? Thanks for coming, everybody. That was good to see you, and we're glad you joined our team. All right, the next item is discussion on the new community development and engineering software. Heath?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This segment of the meeting, we wanted to touch on some of the happenings in community development engineering that are specific to our workflows. It's no secret to the council that we've had challenges. We still face challenges today on what I've conduced to the fact that really boiled down to the process. There's been questions since I've been here, about the regulations. Are they egregious? Do we have too many? Are they a little bit out of the ordinary compared to other cities? And after being here 2.5 years, I can confidently say, there's nothing here that we're doing as far as regulations go for building and development in the city of Watertown that is drastically different than any other community that I've worked in, whether in South Dakota or in Wyoming. And so that does lead me to continue to ponder and continue to look into, where do our faults lie? Where can we be improving upon in the service we provide when it comes to development and issuing building permits? And one of the things that's apparent to me is our process. Our process is rather antiquated. There's a lot of hands involved in it. There's a lot of staff involved in it. And it's just not a well put together, streamlined process as well as it could be. And one of the things that Spencer and Stacy and I have been working on is trying to figure out how to streamline that through the function of a software. So we've been exploring some softwares here the last several months. I think Spencer and I started this task before COVID, and COVID put it on pause for quite some time. Now that Stacy's been on board, we've dusted it off and kind of wanting to get it moved forward with sooner than later so that we can start to see some of these improvements plugged in our processes. With that brief introduction, I'll just pass it over to Stacy and Spencer. Stacy's got a little bit of a PowerPoint that she'll run through and give you some background and context to this software and what it can do for us.
All right, thanks Heath, and thank you everyone tonight for allowing us to present to you. It'll be our pleasure to show you a little bit about what we found. So with some of our department goals, Heath has tasked me with working on some of these things. We've been working on some of these things also with other managers and with staff as well. And we really want to be able to provide better customer service. Heath had alluded to it a little bit. We have an antiquated process, and I do think that we can do a better job. One of the things we want to do is streamline that review process for applicants so they know exactly what they need to submit per project type. A more efficient review process would mean less scanning and less manual data management, passing the permit to a number of people, and then a lot of filing and organization of paperwork. We'd also like the ability within the software, if we are to be fortunate to get a software, the ability to create custom reports with ease. I think it's really important to know and have your finger on the pulse of the economy in terms of permitting at all times, and be able to provide customized reports out to the public quicker and in a more legible format, and also to other decision makers within the community. Mobile technology for field work and inspections, that was also a very critical component when we were looking at a software. We have a number of people that work out in the field and do inspections, both on the engineering and the community development building services side. So we wanted the ability to work out in the field. Data at everyone's fingertips. Right now, it is difficult. We have numerous spreadsheets, we have numerous places, that type of thing. So we wanted a hub, essentially, where all of the data would be kept and everyone could see the same information. We're also looking at better archiving of the data. And the last thing here is we are having some reliability issues with our current database where we're storing data. So that's our goals. He talked a little bit already about the software criteria. So we formed a committee and we looked at multiple software companies. So we sat through demonstrations and we really made notes, and we came up with a couple that we liked and thought that they were comprehensive in nature. So we wanted an online portal for our customers and an online payment system. We felt that this would be very good for customer service. It would allow them to submit plans and things with ease, as well as on the staff side have a clear workflow routing and a plan review software. We felt that this was critical in terms of we route a lot of these projects out to multiple people, so we wanted a clear process and then also the ability to review these plans. The software that we were hoping to integrate with GIS. GIS is our hub, and we see the city only using more GIS in the future. Again, we already talked about accessibility in the field. Intuitive and easy to use. This is pretty broad, but it's also pretty important if you're asking members of the public to use that. So we want something that's pretty easy and intuitive.
And Stacy,
yes,
if I could interject there, and you'll see in a tutorial that Spencer will help give here in a little bit. Focus on that one there, intuitive and easy to use. Something we're really striving for is to make this easy for the applicant and be a benefit to them in this process of submitting a permit application and receiving a permit back from us. So the ease of use was a very important component that we were looking at.
Thanks, Heath. The last thing is we wanted to be able to use this software for more than just permitting on the building side. We wanted to have a system where we could use it for contractor licensing and have that link up, as well as project management on the engineering side and also on the planning and zoning side as well, and code enforcement also. So we were hoping to find a software that was all-encompassing. Okay, so we talked some about efficiency, and we've talked a lot about this, and we've really tried to refine the system that we have as well. But we think that in order to really make some huge gains, the software would really help us there. We're estimating that it could be up to 3/4 of a full-time position saved by the software. In terms, that's a pretty significant amount of time for someone. Lots of scanning and lots of paperwork, lots of manual looking around for things. So we're pretty confident that would be between 1/2 and 3/4 of a full-time equivalent.
If I could expand on that one,
sure.
too. Sorry, Stacy.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I let her know I was going to interject off and on. But on that point, I would just, to put some context to that, the sheer volume of permits that we're reviewing right now, with the level of staff that we have, I think I'm clearly justified with Stacy to bring forth staff request in the next fiscal year. I'm not planning to do that, but we certainly feel it would be justified to do so. And so while we're looking at the software and looking at the efficiencies we're going to gain by it, we're fairly confident that this will essentially function like we've hired a half-time to three-quarter time person because of how it's going to streamline the workload and the workflow and take some of those hands off and the steps out of the process. So that's where we come up with that estimation based on the ease of application processing.
Yes, and also to go along with that, making better use of everyone's time. That would include the customer's time and the staff time as well. So instead of doing some of the more monotonous things that the software could help us with, we would then focus on other tasks that need our attention. So easy to access the records. We've talked about that a little bit already. Just everybody sees everything at the same time. A software would allow us to have customizable application types or forms, and I think that's really important. Right now we have a residential application form and a commercial application form, and if you are a homeowner and you're looking to do a smaller project in terms of a fence or a small shed, we have a lot of information on that residential form that is not applicable, and it's so much so that we've actually even heard members of the public say, oh, this makes my head hurt. So instead of trying to create a lot of different paper forms, which we could accomplish that, we feel that a software would do a much better job of getting the information that we really need and excluding a lot of the information that we don't for the type of application. It would reduce duplicate data entry. There's a lot of duplicate data entry that we have. We're doing a lot of things, written permits by hand, so there's a lot of duplication efforts going on. So there would be less travel time to the office between inspections, so that we're hoping for full mobile access. This is something I've had in-depth conversations with Rick Troop about. He is going out in the field very regularly. He's going to many different job sites doing inspections, and it's really tough for him not to have all of those records and all of that information just right at his fingertips. So he does come back into the office sometimes between inspections or between a few inspections where a software would let him see everything right out there in the field, and then also send inspection reports by email just right in the field. We're also hoping to track contractors automatically, so we're not looking back into a spreadsheet to see who's licensed and who isn't, that type of thing. This is a big one here. We believe that a software has the potential to alert applicants and staff of special conditions on the property. And for instance, floodplain, historic district, downtown overlay district, and the gateway overlay district, those properties that have one or more of those attributes have a different review type or a different review process. There are additional review steps within there. So we'd like everybody to be on the same page, and everybody knows that right up front, the applicant and the staff, so no one inadvertently forgets a step. And then applicants' ability to review the status and comments in real time. We also think this is going to be a huge advantage for the applicants. They can look and see the staff members that have been assigned to the case, the departments that have been assigned, and any comments in real time. So if there's fire department comments in there about a fire sprinkler system needed versus the firewall that's showing, an applicant can certainly start redesigning or contact the fire marshal and get to work on that and not wait for everyone else's review comments. So. Okay, so our current process, as we've talked about this a little bit already, but as you can see, it's kind of a spider web, if you will. So the permit application is submitted, and that's submitted to different staff members frequently. And we've really worked with our applicants to get one point of contact, but that doesn't always happen. So it might be emailed in to a variety of staff members. It may be dropped off hard copy. And then we have to figure out which reviewers are appropriate. So it always goes to multiple reviewers. It might be the DRT, the design review team, for a larger commercial project, or just a smaller group for a smaller type project. So after getting that lined out, we email the plans out. So everything is pretty much done by email right now. And then everyone puts their email comments together and emails back to the appropriate person that's managing the project at the community development level, which gets very confusing. As you know, sometimes emails kind of get buried and that type of thing. So revise, resubmit is also very confusing if we just have two departments that need to see revisions, and there's no really good central way to manage this information. So I want to touch just a little bit on, it is very difficult to track with many projects. The current system probably worked very well for a town with less volume. So it probably worked well for a smaller municipality that was not seeing a lot of growth, but we may have 20 to 30 applications. And so tracking all this stuff by email and doing the revise submit gets very confusing. And so if an applicant calls in, it is very difficult to track exactly where it is in the review process. And that just, I simply feel like, and we all feel that we could do better. So having said that, we've already talked about the loads of scanning and paperwork. And it really is tough with the inspectors out in the field. There's a disconnect because the inspectors cannot see anything out in the field. Our database, you cannot use that. Mobile, I guess. And then also there's a lag between when the permits and the paperwork is scanned and placed in that database. So I think I'm getting a little long-winded there. So we're almost to the fun part. So software efficiencies, just quick, I'll just breeze over this here and then we'll get on to the demo that we have. So the first step would be an application based by project type. So that would be easy for the applicant, user-friendly, and the applicant would have a checklist that would pertain to their project. So if you're doing a fence, you might need something very simple, versus a new home, we're going to need a lot more information. So number two, we would get notified when an application comes in, and then there would be a completeness check. Does it generally have all of the elements submitted? Then it would go to a workflow, and the workflows could be customizable based on the project type. So every person, like every reviewer, is reviewing the same project. Instead of like one time, you have 3 people reviewing it, and the next time you have 6 people reviewing it. It's just consistent right across the board. Any staff comments and revisions are all kept within the hub of that software for centralized data. Once the application is approved and the reviewers sign off, the applicant gets an email, then it's time for payment and permit issuance, and then that kicks off the inspection process and a certificate of occupancy, all which could be handled within a software program. Okay, so this is Spencer's portion. We're going to look a little bit at an online portal, and this is through CitizenServe. That is one of the software companies that we felt was comprehensive in nature. But we wanted to just give you a little bit of a test. Keeping in mind this is their test site, it might be a bit slower than like if we were to purchase the software. And we're also not real experienced with it. One thing I did want to point out, Spencer is logging in here as an applicant would do. So an applicant would have a login. And one municipality within South Dakota that has this particular software is Sturgis, South Dakota. So if you happen to be interested and would like to look up Sturgis, you can see their online portal, which brings us to our test portal.
Yeah,
so,
sorry, I was on the wrong website.
no, that's okay. So as you can see, this is a different city, which this would all be customizable to put the city of Watertown information here. So it would reflect what we actually need here. There's a couple of categories here, and we're going to look at permitting today, so applying for a permit. So this is what the applicant would see. And feel free to interject if you have questions during this part. or any part for that matter. So I talked a little bit about a login, and this is where if you're new to the portal, then you would create a username and password to get started. And then that username and password is going to link you to all of the permits that you have within our system. So if you're a contractor and you have multiple permits going on with us, multiple projects, you're going to see everything in one place. So with that, we'll hit login. Okay. And so it brings you to apply for a permit. And if you can see that red bar, that indicates a required field. So we'll first start out with the application type. And in this, we're going to pick building permit here. And then it also gives us a subtype. And this is where it'd be really nice to put in all of our different project types. And in this case, we're going to do new construction. Okay, so if you want to look more at submittal requirements, there's a place right there to have a checklist. But we know that in this case, and so we're going to put in Watertown single family house, and we're going to say it's a new project. Okay, and then we know the address, I believe, or we know a portion of the address.
Numlocks wasn't working for me here.
Okay, and the nice thing is it would connect up with GIS. So we knew a portion of it, but the nice thing about this is over time, we all tend to make typos and data gets just a little bit different over time. So the fact that it would help standardize how we're inputting data and less room for fat fingering the keyboard. So down here, there's project information. This would all be customizable. In this case, it's just an example. Are you going to put a swimming pool in there? And then how many structures? We're going to buzz down into the occupancy, and that's an R3 for a single family and a 5B construction type. We thought we'd do a 2,000 square foot house today, and we thought it would be about 300,000. On a different screen, this will all calculate a fee automatically based on the fees that are in place. Here is the contractor information. And so the nice thing is, it'll only allow you to select, the way this is set up right now, it'll only allow you to select a licensed contractor. And so we'll, if we were to get a system, we would make sure for residential that we would only be able to select the licensed contractors. It also has room for a subcontractor, an architect, a design professional, or a property owner in there, which is kind of nice because sometimes you have a lot of people that want to stay abreast of the process.
And Stacy, if I could,
yes.
So that contractor check off, that's one of I think 3 or 4 now that we've come across. The first one being the submittal checklist that tells the applicant you're required to submit documents with this application, and it will show them what those documents are that are required later on. The next one being the address. You can't fat finger the address and accidentally assign this to the wrong address, which has happened in the past.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it draws that address information from our address database, so it helps keep that consistent. And then now the third one with the contractor. So I just wanted to point that out, how there's so many nice, convenient checks and balances throughout this whole process, to where our antiquated system now, any one of those things could have simply fallen through the cracks because of the workload and the time frame that each staff member's got with working on a project.
Yeah, so thanks, Heath. So now we're getting to where the applicant is actually going to upload some plans. So go ahead, Spencer, and find some plans. And this is a really neat part on the staff side. Although we're playing the applicant this evening, the staff side is really neat on this aspect, because this permit is not going around from desk to desk, meaning it's all done digitally. Everybody's comments are in here, and we're getting rid of the long email strings. So by approving this, we have the disclaimer statement that the applicant agrees to all the terms and conditions, and they actually have a signature box, so we can collect a digital signature. and Spencer's going to do his very artful signature today. So, and with that, as soon as he clicks submit, then the staff would get a notification that there is a permit pending, and it actually has a little box that says, hey, your application has been submitted. So that's nice to know. Okay, so we're going to run through the payment really quick like here. Typically, we would be collecting our fees at the end of the process, but this would be if you had a plan review fee or you wanted to collect your fees up front, either or. But we thought that we would just show you this because it's so easy and quite convenient if someone were to be working on something late, you know, and they could submit it from their office any time of the day or night or their home computer. So this is pretty slick here. And then it automatically, when we hit submit, it automatically tells Spencer that he has something wrong. And then it should automatically tell us that you have a receipt right here. So gone are the days potentially of writing out receipts, doing credit card receipts and then writing out receipts, and a lot of receipts going different directions. So this is pretty slick right here. Okay, so now the applicant has paid for the permit. So I think that now we were going to go back and take a look at what the applicant could see. Is that correct, Spencer?
Yeah, that's correct. The only other thing I was going to note is
go
that the applicant would also get an email with that receipt, as
Mm-hmm.
well as when they open the building permit right away, it'd say, hey, congratulations, I don't know,
Yeah.
you made a building permit.
Yeah.
So there'd be kind of that process where you're going to get email notifications whenever there's
Mm-hmm.
a new permit put in or a note made on a permit. So there's going to be that email communication
Yeah.
also.
Well, it does stay in touch with the applicant much more throughout the process. So that's handy. So we're still logged in as the applicant here, and we're logged in under the applicant's account. If we go over to the left and say view my permits, this is really pretty neat. So you can see all of the permits that that the applicant is currently working on, that Spencer has out, I guess. And the one that we just did is the one up top. The others are some other examples that we were working on, and you can see that we do have one under review right now. So if we drill into that a little deeper, it lets us know that the permit is not issued, and it gives all of the information about the permit. And then it also, if we look at the reviews, this is a key component here. And of course, this would be customizable to exactly what we would do. But you can see all of these different divisions. We could potentially even see a name of a person. But it shows where they're at in their review status. So somebody could have it complete, somebody could have it approved with conditions, which we will take a look at that. So the application intake was approved with conditions, so we want to know what those conditions are and can drill in. And it has a bunch of different comments in here. These are just standard comments, if you will. Certain submittal documents weren't provided.
Stacy, can I?
Yeah.
You mentioned to jump in, so
Yeah,
I will, if that's all right.
absolutely.
The reminders, when you have different projects at different points through the process, there are a lot of steps, and especially if it's your first time through as a citizen, you got to learn that process. I've been through that myself. Does it automatically send out emails to say, hey, everybody's at stage 4, just a reminder, you're at stage 4? Can you set that up automatically?
We might be able to. We might be able to set that kind of thing up because a lot of it is customizable, and we do want that that notification. So I know that it'll let an applicant know when the project's been received, and I know it'll let an applicant know when there are comments. So that would be, if you had some comments and you wanted to right away get to work on them and not wait for everybody's review, we could certainly do that. So there is more correspondence. I'm not sure exactly how we can set that up, but I'm sure that there's a way to do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the documents is a really neat thing too. And so when I talked about plan review software. We can actually make markups on this particular document. So we see that there's some comments on the site plan. So this is really neat because sometimes in a general email, it's kind of hard for an applicant to know, okay, what exactly are they talking about? So with this, you can see all of the comments from all of the divisions can be added to one document or several documents. So it's really, really handy. Staff can measure things, staff can call out things, there's measure areas, that type of thing. And this is all within the Citizen Serve project. Also, you can see a list of standard comments that are over on the left-hand side of the page. If you want to pick standard comments, just to keep everything the same, or you have the same comments over and over again, you could check those and pre-populate that. So it's a big time saver rather than writing it out every single time. The other thing that's really neat about this is you can have a review stamp. If you look at the stamp where it says received, it actually shows you when this was received. And another neat feature is once this is approved, it can actually be stamped, and it tracks everything in terms of, well, who approved this, and what is the approved version, and what date was that. So you always know that you have, and then the applicant can then download these, this version, and then we would expect that version to be in the field. So everybody is looking at not the builder and the contractors out in the field are looking at the final version, not a draft version, because we would know because it would be stamped. So a nice way to make sure that we're all looking at the same version. So
this component here, I'll chime in. This to me was another huge asset to the software that we end up going with, and having these review comments linked with a markup of the submitted drawing, to me it's imperative to the success of addressing those review comments. It really helps give the applicant an understanding of what it is staff is requesting. They can see it marked up on the map or the plan that they've submitted. They can go right to, sometimes there's multiple pages of the plans, they go right to each page and see the concerns and the red lines, and it's all marked up right there in one location with a comprehensive list of those comments all tabulated there as well.
yeah, so you can just check things off. And Heath, as you mentioned, if we're looking at a plan set for a new hotel, we're going to have multiple pages of a document and lots of detail. And so it's much easier to just go right to that page, circle it, make comments right on that particular page. So there's no question in trying to describe something. You know, we could use a PDF markup version, but then everybody has to send a PDF markup, and then pretty soon it gets very confusing. So this is a nice one-stop shop to show all of the comments.
I think Jason had a question. Councilman Rademski.
With this software, is this open to the general public just to go and look at who has taken out a building permit, or is this strictly between the applicant and the engineering staff?
That's an excellent question. We actually asked that in our last session. And so when something's in the review process, it is only the applicant and the city staff. And so it's kept confidential up to the point where it's actually issued. So everything is confidential until a permit is issued, essentially. And then you see things more on a report form, not necessarily digging and drilling down into everyone's comments. So most of this would be between an applicant and the staff.
And that's why you have to have that login in order to get into your portal to see kind of, that's why it's got you have to sign in to be able to see this, I guess.
Yeah, because we consider everything confidential until a permit's actually been issued.
Josh, did you have a question?
I did. This is exciting stuff. So I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So once a permit is issued and they need to like print the permit, or they need to have a physical copy, will they be able to print that right from this? And then other communities in the state of South Dakota, I think this is really an advancement. Are we ahead of them in the game, or what are like the top 6 or top 10 in the state? Where do we sit?
Those are very good questions. So Which one should we take first?
The permit printing. I'll help you, Casey.
Okay,
Casey.
permit printing. My understanding is that yes, a permit could be printed, and then everything could be truly done online. And that's a really nice feature, especially in the day and age that we're in today with the COVID and things. It's just a great feature. So.
And then the other communities? How do
Other
we compare?
communities, that's pretty interesting because we actually do have some other communities that will reference, and we're going to talk just a little bit about permit fees too. So I think a number of communities have a software system, and I think that the Access database did work well at one point in time. I think that we've had a number of changes in staff, and I do think that we're getting so much data in it that in just the multiple permit requests, just the volume of permit requests, I think this would really streamline things for us. So I think it's tough to know exactly, but I do think that a number of communities have recently or have had softwares. Rapid City, Sioux Falls, of course. I believe Aberdeen has one. Brookings had one and then purchased a new one recently. Sturgis, we know that they actually have this particular software that we're demoing today. So I think that it's pretty common to see Huron. They recently purchased one as well. So.
And to that note, Councilman Y, we have been veering away from those that either Stacy or I had personal experience with, or that Spencer's done research on that seemed a little bit less inclusive and didn't quite meet the mark of where we were aiming for here. Mm-hmm. So we have steered away from a few that we've done research on.
Yeah, a lot of them, what we have found is a lot of them don't offer a full online portal. And I think that in order to have something, we really want to be able to improve our customer service. And I think that the online portal in today's day and age is a huge factor. So,
Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. Stacy, question. When someone inputs their address, they're applying for a building permit, will this alert them to, does it have the capability to alert them to a historic area or a floodplain? Will it do that automatically?
we believe so. We believe it will be able to, because we're going to be tying the address and or legal description and or parcel ID, everything we have in GIS layers to this software. So they'll have a bi-directional communication, but yes, we do believe that it will flag those properties right up front for us.
And as we develop, as the community develops, new neighborhoods, business development, that's something I would assume you'd have to update on an ongoing basis into the program.
Yes.
And that leads to my next question.
Yes.
And this is probably more for Spencer, would be upgrade frequency, and what Sturgis's experience with that, and what the, what the costs are associated with those upgrades. They do it every year, and I mean, I've seen so many of these things over the years that, you got to do it every year. You get behind, and then it costs you a fortune to get caught up, and
So
and that kind of thing. And then one other one, and that
I better write these
is
down.
have we piloted this at all? I mean, if you taken an end user and asked them to try it, and just see how they fare with it, with just a pilot.
It's great you guys are so interested. I think this was more so to see if there was interest. So I think it's kind of to get started here. I think we're open to that. We kind of had it in our smaller group here. We demoed a ton of different softwares. We think that this is a huge decision, and wanting to make the right one is so important. So we haven't yet, but I think that we could.
Yeah, and as far as updating information, you're absolutely right, Councilman Bueller. It will definitely take some time for staff to be uploading some of this, but I think that most of it's going to occur probably through First District in inputting things into the GIS, and then I believe it's going to flow over. Yeah,
that's one of the biggest thing that I was looking for, is to have that integration with GIS. So that GIS is our hub, is the way I see it, and as long as the information's in there, we can pull from it. So we don't have to do it twice. We don't have to, we have to update the parcel information here and then over here. have it all in the same thing and have them feed off of each other. So I think that was like one of the big things that we're looking for.
Yeah, and to address your question about upgrades, our understanding of this particular software that we're looking at, and many of them, there's an annual subscription. So you'll have a setup fee, and then you'll have an annual subscription. And within that annual subscription, it will keep us with the latest software, and there won't be, so we'll know budget-wise what we would need. But great question.
And maybe Stacy, just for the sake of time, is that a good segue maybe just to skip right into that component?
I think so.
Unless there's something critical
Yeah.
we'll be skipping over, Spencer or Stacy.
Did you have a question?
Oh, I did, but I can make it really quick. It's actually about the end user interface. So with the subtypes, when you're going over those, when you hover over a type description, does it give you definitions if you leave the cursor over it as to what it is? Or can we create a page within that would maybe define some of these things?
I think so.
Because I think a lot about just folks that don't know what an R3 is. They don't know what an R2 is.
Yeah.
The only reason I ever learned most of that is because of this position.
Right.
Otherwise, I mean, you have a very basic understanding of it.
Yeah. If we go into something, so a contractor would most likely then be applying for like a new house. And so if we did a subtype that was, say, electrical, or they have one set up as electrical, but if we had something that a homeowner would typically do, absolutely, it would give you that checklist information and explain to you, what is this site plan? What are we looking for with a site plan? What are setbacks?
Right.
Why are they important? That type of thing. What's an easement? So there would be the opportunity to have all of that stuff. And we could certainly ask about like the hover over within this particular screen.
Okay, and then two other things really quick.
Sure.
With this potentially being integrated, if we go to this system, does this force digital submission, or can we still do a manual submission for technology illiterate people that refuse to touch computers?
That's a great question. And so I think we would encourage everybody to use this system. However, encourage is different than mandate. And I would have a very, very hard time turning somebody away that didn't have a computer. And I think that staff would still be able to walk somebody through and play the role of the applicant. That's how I see it.
And we would also anticipate, Councilman Hoyer, having a computer available at City Hall specific for this function. So if somebody didn't have a home computer or they were having issues with the online service, we could simply have somebody like our permit technician help them right there at the counter and punch in all the information and walk them right through it.
I'm just thinking about 85-year-old Joe Smith that does not want to touch the computer, and just making sure we can still walk that citizen through everything.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because we're hoping to help customer service with this program or a software and not hinder that. So we'd be happy to help. And I know that it will be a bit of a learning process and a bit of staff being sensitive to that and helping applicants through this.
Okay, we have a couple more quick questions. Councilman Billhauer?
Michael, you raised a question I was going to ask, because this looks very similar to what our accounting firms did as I was phasing out a few years ago. Awful lot of efficiencies to be had, and implementing a client portal. But I will tell you this: the firm had an awful lot of pushback along the lines of what we were just discussing from the especially the demographic of the older people. That said, I'm not going to do this. I refuse to do it. So we do need to be prepared for that, because we will get it.
I agree with you. Maybe even having some training sessions set up for our frequent users, if that would help.
Okay, Councilwoman Manti has a question. We got to wrap up.
Okay, so, this will be a quick follow-up. Just to prove that great minds think alike, Bruce asked almost all the questions I had written down here. So just to take his one step further, when you access your address, and he's talking about whether it's a floodplain or overlay district, to what extent, just taking that one step further, to what extent does the applicant have access to what's in the GIS system in regards to their property?
Well,
so, go ahead.
You could get some of the information off of the First District website, which is public. So you could get like the floodplain, and that would be public. I think it is more of an alert, not so much that that the applicant could really drill into our GIS layers. I think it would be some of these user-defined fields, if you will, or user-defined layers. So we'd only have a flag that you're in a floodplain, or a flag that you're in a historic district.
Well, and to go further with that, Stacy, my understanding of this particular software is it would then channel you down an appropriate path that addresses that overlay district or that floodplain that you're in.
Yes.
It would include a floodplain development permit requirement. It would include the criteria for the Gateway Overlay District, and things like that would be highlighted down that path once it realized your address was in that location.
Yes, it would. It would give you further information and add in other review steps as necessary.
Okay, that's really good, because I just was worried that you put in your address and now all of a sudden it says something about your property, and then you're like, well, now what do I do? You know, or oh, I'm in the floodplain. And so I just wanted to make sure that there was adequate, I don't think people need to dig into everything that's already public through our website, but just an adequate amount of information so that there isn't a lot of confusion or frustration when somebody says, so now what? And then if it takes them to, you're in a floodplain, here's the flag, I think that would be really good. This is really exciting stuff coming from someone who downloaded 8 pages to put on a deck. So,
Well, thank you very much. We wanted to just really quick hit the highlights here. So you all must be wondering, what does something like this cost? And so we did put up some numbers here, and I'll quickly go through them. Just over $75,000 for the initial cost in the setup, and Citizen Serve is pretty. It's pretty in line with a few other softwares that we call the full service softwares. With the online portal. Here is our annual fee. We did this based on the number of users. Some charge based on the number of users, some charge based on different departments, but it would be a $37,000 annual fee. Data migration would be a little bit more if necessary, but with this particular software, the plan review is already included. Quickly, Spencer could maybe touch on the 2021 capital budget.
Yeah, currently in the IT budget, we've got $70,000 for some public works type software. And I also have around a $20,000 budget carryover if it's accepted. So we do have some money for the capital expense. It's just, keeping an eye on that annual fee.
Yeah, and so just quickly, we figure that we average about $187,000 in average permit revenues. I took the last 3 years, and that was the average. We have had the same permit fees since 2016, and we are relatively low compared to other communities, which we'll show you in just one moment. There is an ICC standard out there. It was developed a while ago. That basically says that, to be self-sufficient and to rely on fees alone, we would really need to double our permit fees. So just wanted to throw that out there. And then we could also incorporate a plan review fee.
And to that point, Stacy, if I could quick interject, that ICC code recommendation is not what we would be recommending.
No.
We're not looking to double our fees, but we want to use these numbers as a point of context to where it just takes an incremental nominal increase in these permit fees, we feel, to cover these annual costs for this software. Now, if you look at that from a buyer, a customer, and a level of service relationship, I truly believe once we educate the users of this, the developers, the builders, they will see the benefit in this. And right now, if you look at this chart that Spencer has up, we're at the bottom of the list as far as our total fees. And I say this a little facetiously, but customers are really getting what they're paying for right now. They're getting an antiquated process for a low fee because we simply don't have the revenues to cover a software that would help bring us up to the level that a community our size we feel should be at.
Yeah.
So that small nominal increase, we haven't put a hard number to that yet, but we're not recommending anything to the extent of doubling the fees like the ICC code would recommend.
Yes. Having said that, Brookings in Watertown, we have the same fees. I do know Brookings is also looking at increasing their fees as well. So even if we looked at the category of Sioux Falls, that's about 43% higher. Now, I have to preface this chart with, this is a specific example of a commercial permit with a $400,000 valuation. So we just picked that to give you this snapshot. You can see the fees here. Even if we were lower than Sioux Falls, it would more than adequately cover the annual fee and the cost of the software.
With that, I think we can call our presentation a wrap, but we would simply we just wanted to break the ice in this discussion with the Public Works Committee tonight. We would definitely seek to bring forward some more specific information related to potential fee increases to help offset the cost of the new software. We would definitely, to some of the points that were raised tonight, get some of those questions researched further and anticipate some interaction with the public, some of the common users, and get some feedback from them ahead of rolling something like this out.
Yeah, and we'd welcome your ideas, comments, and feedback.
Quick question.
Very quick, last one, and then I won't say any more. Just to kind of prove a point, because I've gone through this one time too. How often do you guys get called a day, or somebody stops in just to check the status of their permit?
Typically daily, if not several times a day.
So this would mitigate that. That's like the biggest win to me.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm glad that the council was engaged and interested in it. That's impressive.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
We really appreciate your time and your questions.
Nice presentation.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you
job.
very much. Thank you.
Is there any other new business? Seeing none, we do not have a reason to go into executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2, and there being no further business, I declare the meeting adjourned. We'll be back for the council meeting in just a few minutes.